Hello, everyone. Sal Maiorana, and I am live at Gillette Stadium here following the Bills' rather remarkable 35-31 victory over the New England Patriots earlier this afternoon. Look, this was a game that the Bills really had no business winning throughout a first half where they played about as poorly as a playoff team or a potential playoff team could play. They got down 21-0 in the first 20 minutes of the game, looked absolutely dead on both sides of the ball. Defense could not do a thing against the Patriots offense. The first three Buffalo possessions ended in punts, including two that were on New England's side of the field, so not a great look for Sean McDermott. And by the time the half ended, it was 24-7. Patriots, the teams walked off the field. The Bills, I'm not going to say looked like a beaten team, but the Patriots looked like they were 30 minutes away from winning the game and clinching the AFC East for the first time since 2019. And then, for whatever reason, the switch completely flipped. The Bills played a spectacular second half on both sides of the ball. Starting with their last possession in the first half, a touchdown by Buffalo. They ended up scoring touchdowns on 5 consecutive possessions, stretching into the middle of the fourth quarter, and the last of those being James Cook's game-winning 11-yard touchdown run with about 6:48 left to play. So 5 straight possessions ending in touchdowns for the Bills. And here was the key to the rally. The defense, which had been so horrible in the first half, they gave up 285 yards in that first half, 177 of that on the ground. Just a pathetic performance, missed tackles. They were out of their lanes against the run. They couldn't do anything against this Patriots offense. For whatever reason, the second half, the defense made its adjustments, which we've been getting used to with the Bills. This is what they've kind of been doing for the last few weeks, starting slowly and then finishing great. They turned it around in the second half, and suddenly Drake Maye and the running game really didn't have any success. I think the Patriots had 5 possessions in the second half. They only scored once, and that was a one-play possession right after the Bills had taken their first lead. Travion Henderson broke that 65-yard touchdown run on a play that was supposed to go right, and the Bills sniffed it out. They had a bunch of guys over there, and they lost contain on the backside. Henderson reversed field and went all the way untouched to the end zone. So that was the only mistake, really, that the Bills defense made in the second half. And it looked like it was going to be a dagger because that put the Patriots, back on top right after the Bills had just made this huge rally to take the lead. It felt like one of those dagger in the heart moments, but I got to give the Bills a lot of credit. This team has a lot of heart. They've got a lot of resilience. We saw it last week in that Bengals game. They were down 10 points in the fourth quarter of that game and found a way to win. This team has what it takes when its back is pressed firmly against the wall. And that was so evident after that Travion Henderson touchdown run. Bills came right back. I think it was a 65-yard drive. They only needed 7 plays. There was a big play, a big third down conversion. I don't have my play-by-play sheet in front of me, but then James Cook, took it in from the 11-yard line to cap that drive, and that put the Bills up 35-31. And to the house, there was 2 more possessions for the Patriots. The first one was a 3-and-out. They did nothing, and they punted back to the Bills. There was a point there with 5 minutes to go. The Bills had the ball with a chance to maybe run the clock out with a couple first downs. Couldn't do it. That was the first failed possession of the second half. They went 3-and-out, had to punt it back. So the Patriots get it with 2:43 to go, all 3 timeouts, and they're 83 yards away from the end zone. So it was going to take something, but it never even got close. The Bills got off the field on fourth down. Joey Bosa had a pass deflection on Drake Maye's play. Was a 4th and 5, and that essentially clinched the game. But the Bills had to get one more first down because the Patriots still had some timeouts, but they did get that. Ty Johnson with a clutch third down conversion, and the Bills were able to run it out, and it's a 35-31 victory for Buffalo. Look, again, I don't think the Bills, well, I shouldn't say I don't think. it's probably not going to happen that they're going to catch the Patriots and win the division. They still have to win out. They've got at Cleveland next week, which is very doable, obviously. Philadelphia at home the week after. The Eagles, big win today against the Raiders, but the Raiders are horrible. The Eagles have not played great lately, so that's certainly a game at home that the Bills can win. And then they bring the Jets to town for the season finale, and the Jets are, like the Browns, putrid. So you've got two games there that they absolutely should win, and the Eagles will probably be a tough game, very much a toss-up, I would think, but certainly a game the Bills can win. So if the Bills take care of business, they're still going to need some help. The Patriots are going to have to lose at least one game to either the Jets in week 18 or 17 and then the Dolphins in week 18, because that'll get the division tiebreaker back to even for Buffalo if the Patriots were to lose a second division game. So it's got to be one of those two teams. If the Patriots could win two of their other games, but one loss has to be to a division opponent. And then at that point, we get down to common opponents or whatever the next tiebreaker is. And as I said, if the Bills win out, they would win the division. So there is a chance. I'm not going to say it's not impossible. There is going to be a chance, but I don't think it's a great chance for the Bills. I think this is a game the Patriots are going to learn from, actually. We were talking, a couple guys in the media were talking earlier in the week, and it probably was a good thing, believe it or not, probably a good thing for the Patriots to suffer a loss here down the stretch. They'd won 10 in a row. You can get awful fat and happy when you've won 10 games in a row. And it was probably a good thing for them to get punched in the mouth today and slap back to reality and have them realize that this is still going to be a grind for them. And with a coach like Mike Vrabel, I would think they're going to get right back to it this week. And he said after the game, we are going to learn from this. And there are some lessons that the Patriots can learn that they can take forward as the season goes down to the finish here. As for Buffalo, look, I've said this, in numerous places the last couple of weeks. I still don't trust this defense, even though today in the second half, just as it did last week in the second half, played much better, and they were a huge part of these victories. Yes, the offense scored the ultimate points, 39 points against the Bengals, 35 today against a very good Patriots defense, by the way. So the offense is tremendous, but the defense did do its part to give that offense the chance to do what it did in these last two games. How much more the Bills can keep doing this? That's an interesting question, because once you get to the postseason, I think they're going to be fine these next 3 weeks, given the opponents they have. But once you get to the playoffs, I just don't see a scenario where the Bills can keep tempting fate like this and digging themselves into the holes that they've dug themselves in these last few games. I think this is the Bills. I want to say it's their seventh come from behind win. They've won 7 games this year where they were trailing at some point. Obviously, these last 2 were fourth quarter comeback victories for them. In the playoffs, that is a dangerous game to play. You're facing better opponents, and I don't know that you're going to be able to pull off rallies to the extent that Buffalo has done in these last couple of games. So they got to fix that. Sean McDermott was asked after this game about the slow starts, and he's concerned. He admitted he is concerned about it, that he's not quite sure why these things are happening in the first half that have, gotten the Bills off to these slow starts. But he does keep trumping the fact that his team does make great second half adjustments. And I think one of the other keys too for the Bills is this team has got an attitude about it, and they never really do get down and despondent when they fall behind. They are a very, the quotes are very boring from Josh Allen and a lot of these players. Just one play at a time, one drive at a time. But that really is true when you're in a situation that the Bills face today. It really had to be one play at a time. You build a drive that way, and then you ultimately get the score. You got to come right back and do it again. And this team, I will give them this. They have that quality about them. When you win 5 division championships in a row, this is a quality that you've built up through the years, and they continue to do it. And what's been impressive this year is they're doing it with, I think, a roster that probably isn't as good as teams they've had during this 5-year run of excellence in the division. So that's been impressive. But again, like I said, I go back to the point of they have to stop doing this. They've got to stop digging themselves into these holes, because at some point that's going to come back and bite them in the ass. In terms of players today, a couple of guys that I want to focus on who I really thought stood out. I could put Josh Allen in this category every single week. The guy is just unbelievable. He comes in here today. A lot of talk about Drake Maye is the front runner for the MVP. Him and Matt Stafford of the Rams, which I would definitely believe Stafford. I think Stafford should win the award, quite frankly. But let's not forget about Josh Allen. He's the defending league MVP, and he has played like a superstar in the last few games. He is, I don't care about the MVP. I don't pay attention to it, but he has definitely got to get himself back into the conversation, because his performances, especially these last 2 weeks, have just been superlative. He won Player of the Week last week for his performance in that game. The second time he's won that this year. Probably won't get that this week, but he was a key instrument in this victory today. The way he put those 5 touchdown drives together. He was back using his legs again. He had some key runs. I think he had 48 yards rushing, 193 passing. It wasn't a huge game for him, but more than enough to get the job done. So Allen, again, great performance today. James Cook, very workmanlike game. He had 107 yards. It didn't feel like it. Never felt like he was able to pop a big run in this game, but there were enough runs that kept them in, favorable down and distance. And, with a passing game like Buffalo's, which has struggled all year, they need to be in good down and distance. So that was important that James Cook was able to do that. Plus he did score 2 touchdowns, one on a pass reception when it was 21-7 or 21-0. That got them to 21-7. That was a big play at the end of the first half. And then the game winner on the 11-yard run that gave them the lead for good. So a nice day for him. I thought Khalil Shakir made one of the biggest plays of the game. The Bills, 4th and 3, they were down. I think they were still, that was the touchdown that put them up 28-24. That drive, they had a 4th and 3, a very risky play by the Bills. Allen threw deep to Shakir, who was one-on-one, and Shakir made an unbelievable catch. No separation, just a great grab. Turned out that there was pass interference, so even if he hadn't caught it, the Bills would have been in good shape, but that was a big play. Other than that, there was really nothing from this wide receiver core today, which is getting to be a very, very tiring story. Shakir had 5 for 65. The only other ball that was caught by a receiver, Josh Palmer, 1 for 16. So just brutal. That's another thing that's going to ultimately, I think, bite him in the ass if they don't get that figured out. Ray Davis, huge game. Ray Davis has been one of the best stories of this season. The Bills were nowheresville in their return game. Brandon Codrington wasn't working out. He had been a healthy scratch for several weeks in a row. They were trying different things back there, and they finally ended up with Ray Davis, and he had the 97-yard touchdown return in the Houston game, and today 4 kick returns. He averaged 41 yards, huge. Gave the Bills great field position all day. One of the biggest plays of the game was the second half kickoff. He brought it back 58 yards, and Allen and McDermott both pointed out that was a huge play because it gave the Bills a great drive start to start the half. They're 17 points down. They got to start scoring points, and they were immediately in position because of Ray Davis. So a great job by him today. Outstanding, in fact. On the defensive side, look, the Bills were without Christian Benford. That was he was inactive before the game. He had hurt his toe in practice Thursday, and that looked like that was going to be a serious problem. They had to start Max Hairston, the rookie, alongside Trey White. But I'll tell you what, those guys played a really nice game. Drake Maye ran for 2 touchdowns today. He made a few nice plays, but he only ended up with 155 yards passing. I think that's actually the first time he's been below 200 all season. Bills did a great job on their receivers. Stephon Diggs was almost invisible. I think he had 3 catches for 26 yards. Bills did a great job on him. And he operated, again, mostly out of the slot, which meant that, guys like Taron Johnson and Matt Milano were in coverage on him on some of the plays. And that was a matchup that I thought was going to be a big problem for the Bills, and they came out of it very well. So keeping him in check, keeping Diggs in check was a big part of this game. Drake Maye did not go off, and that had a lot to do with the Bills' defensive secondary playing without its best player. So major props to those guys back there. Pass rush in the second half was nowhere in the first half, but they ended up getting 3 sacks in the second half, 2 of those by Milano, who came on blitzes. So that was big too. And one of those came late in the fourth quarter, forced a Patriots punt here. So that was a big game. Milano, in fact, probably had his best game of the year. He has not had a great season, and it's probably going to be his last year with the Bills. At least his contract runs out. I don't think they would bring him back, but this was the Matt Milano that we had grown accustomed to before all the injuries started really slowing him down. So great performance by Matt Milano today. So I think that'll wrap it up from Gillette Stadium. I just wanted to get in a few thoughts. Adam's not here today, but we didn't want to do a pod for you guys after a game that, it's getting to be old hat for the Bills. They have played some of the best games of this NFL season. You go back to week 1, that incredible game against the Ravens. Last week's game was probably a top 5 game in the NFL this season. Burrow against Allen and how that whole thing unfolded. The Tampa Bay game was a great game back in November. And now this one today, another instant classic. They beat a team today that had won 10 games in a row and was trying to clinch the AFC East. They got down 21-0 and 24-7 and came back to win. So I think this is going to be a game that you're going to see on NFL Network replayed this week as well. So major props to the Bills. 10-4. This is the 7th straight year that they've won 10 games. That's the 5th, or tied for the 5th longest streak in NFL history. The Cowboys from 75 to 81 also won at least 10 games in 7 straight years. So it's a great accomplishment. Also, since 2020, the Bills have not been swept by a division opponent in any season. The Patriots had a chance to do that today, and they did not get it done. Again, a great Bills victory. 10-4 on the season. They have solidified their spot in this postseason run. And as I said at the top of the show, still alive in the division race, still a lot of work to do, but you got a chance, and that's all you need, right? All right, we're going to wrap it up from Gillette Stadium. I'm Sal Maiorana. Thank you very much for being here. FanDuel has presented this Believe in Bills podcast. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you probably with Adam on this Tuesday. Take care.